Welcome back to the morning show right here on ETV. We're 8 minutes away before we get to 7 o'clock. Right now, we're joined by Phillip Scott, who is the CEO of African Diaspora News Channel and host of the Phillip Scott Show, all the way from Houston, Texas. And today, he's going to be talking to us about his platform, which covers news and analysis on politics from across the African diaspora and showcases the diversity and the landscape of the African continent. And today, he's here to unpack for us a little bit more about his news channel and his show and a whole lot more, especially his interest when it comes to Africa with the elections coming up, especially in South Africa. Phillip, welcome to the morning show. It's good to have you.
Thank you very much.
It's great to be having you in your third time visit to South Africa. How have you been finding it so far?
Yes, sir. It's been good. It's been good. It's starting to become a home away from home.
Yeah, I was hoping that you'd say that because at this point it must be feeling like home. You must be knowing a little bit of the street names. I don't know if you've got a local name as yet.
No,
not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, I'm going to talk to someone. They need to organize that for you expeditiously. Right. But let's talk a little bit more about your news channel. You know, this is something that you've established and has reached millions of people over the years and over time, just being able to put out the content of specific focus into the African diaspora. Take us back into the starting of it and really where that, how can I say, that desire to be able to put a spotlight on it and uncover more and double click continuously where people would stay on the surface rose and eventually said, I need to create a platform where people can not just only hear me share my views, but that we can continuously learn about what's happening on the African continent.
Well, we started off in 2012, and the platform had a different name at that time. But we did a news report about the Shinda Festival in Ethiopia in the Tigray region. And the ambassador out of Los Angeles actually saw it and said, hey, you like to go to Ethiopia? I'm like, hey, I've never been to the African continent, so okay, cool. So I get a passport and everything, and we went, and and that trip changed everything for me because I got there, I was, kind of overwhelmed a little bit, but also I was angry at the same time. But I felt a connection to the land, and my anger came from, well, why nobody told me this sooner? I feel like I missed out on a lot. And so after that trip and all the experience, when I came back, to the United States, I was like, you know what? I got to do something different. A little different. I said, I got to really include all, people, black people throughout the world. So I started that's when the name got changed. When I used to have it to African Diaspora, and my vision said, you know what, we need to cover the news that we have in our community because it's not covered like it should be. And it can't just be me. I truly believe we got to bring in a diaspora, and that's, what we have done is brought, bringing people in from South Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, Ghana. Of course, we got people in Black America, and we are constantly going to expand, of course, as we can.
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful to see how it's grown and didn't just stay in that place in 2012 when it was just interest into one part of Africa, but it's moved into the Africa as an entirety. But I want to double click into your interest into South African politics. At which point did that draw your attention? Because the story of South Africa is one that's known globally, but for one to then not just know the story, but to cup their ear and into saying, hey, I want to know a little bit more. I want to be able to educate myself over more about what's happening there and what's happening with the people in that particular context.
Well, it just made more sense. Number one, as you do your research, you look at who's actually watching. And South Africa is like the #1 African country that consistently watch our platform. And at the same time, due to the history of apartheid, then of course we went through, Jim Crow, segregation, slavery, etc. And I'll fight against that. I'll fight against apartheid. I always say that South Africans is one of the only African groups that we kind of understand each other due to the history. Because you look at Jim Crow, segregation versus apartheid, it literally almost mirrors each other. Yeah. Of course, you guys went through that a little longer, all the way up to 1994. So from what I see, it just made more sense to do that. And so we wanted to have people here that can, hey, educate me, because sometimes I'm asking them to educate me based on culture. So maybe I won't say the wrong thing or offend people, because that's very important, because, sometimes some Americans, think our culture is supposed to be Lord Master of everybody. No, we need to respect everybody. So that's a lot of times for me, just education. Sometimes I listen and watch a lot more than I speak.
Yeah, and I think this is why you've incorporated getting some South African journalists to be able to be a part of the platform, to be the voice of what the culture is like here. Is this something that you did with intent to in learning about South Africa, use the platform to teach others about what's happening in South Africa by incorporating voices from South Africa?
Well, for me, I believe in kind of staying in my place. And for me, it's like, even though I can study the history of South Africa, and I can speak on some of the politics, at the end of the day, I'm still Black American.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to have anyone say, man, okay, I get it, but you didn't really grow up in this culture, man. So I want to bring people that grew up in the culture, and I say, listen, some things I don't speak on, unless it's something I really can dive into, but I'd rather the South African journalists speak on it because they're here. And they know the culture and maybe understand why a certain response is a certain way. And for me, it's all about respect. You know, I want to respect the culture, respect the people, and I kind of, where I come from, believe in a stay in your lane deal. So I stay in my lane and let them do what they do.
Yeah. One of the things that I always enjoy about platforms such as the channel that you've got, as well as your show, the Phillip Scott Show, is people always look forward to hearing from the host, or in this case from yourself, when it comes to different things that would happen globally. There'd be an event that would happen, and it's just like, man, I can't wait to hear what Phillip Scott's perspective would be on this, considering someone who's learned in the wider topic. And one such a topic is, especially with us in 2024, this year particularly, is a very big election year. I think it's a big election year globally, but for us in South Africa, it feels like a turning point type of election. And I'm sure you've been doing quite a bit of close focus into what's happening over there. What's been your assessment of what's happening, and kind of your perception of where people could be going to come the 29th of May and we go into elections?
Well, for me, just as a Black American, I know how we are as Americans, and let's say the topic of load shedding. If we were dealing with load shedding in America, whatever party's in power, they're gone. We're not going to put up with it. Americans do not like to be inconvenienced. So when I heard somebody was talking about maybe up to stage 16 load shedding, I'm like, okay, what is going on? And at the same time, how I feel, if there's an issue or maybe there's just not expertise, what's the point of being in BRICS if you can't call your partners in China or Russia, say, hey, y'all not dealing with this issue. Can you come down here and maybe help us with this situation? Because you're affecting not only just inconvenience, but business, commerce, when you have, load shedding. Also other social issues about jobs. For us, we look at whatever party's in power, whoever that may be, even in America, are they performing? Like as of right now, we have our president in power, we have our issues, and a lot of people say, I may have to do something different in November because we're just not liking the results. So
that performance is what guides how it will happen.
Performance and the economy. Because if you can't put food on the table, all that, it don't matter who's in power, get somebody else to replace them.
It ultimately goes back down to that. Phillip, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the rest of your stay here. It's a lot of work. I've heard that you're here for work, and there's going to be tons of it, and we're looking forward to just seeing how it all translates onto your channel and just seeing more of South African voices on that news channel. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
There you have it, a conversation that we've been waiting for, and of course, hopefully piqued your interest. So go on over and check out the African Diaspora news channel, as well as the Phillip Scott Show on YouTube or different platforms that you can be able to get it from there. Stick around. We still have a whole lot more coming up right here on The Morning Show. In actual fact, Vuyo standing by to give you your 7 o'clock news.